So not long ago, I picked up a murderer. I just finished work for the day and I was about to start youth, but I'd forgotten some gear. And normally I have this gear with me all the time. Normally it comes with me in my car, but that day I just happened to forget it. And so I get in my car, it's bucketing down rain, and I head to where I need to go to pick this gear up. And I see on the side of the road this gentleman who is just soaking wet. He's walking down the highway. And I decide I'm going to pull over, I'm going to help this guy out. I don't know where he's going, I don't know where he's come from, but I know he's wet and he needs some help. And so I pull over. As I pull over, I see that he's covered head to toe in tattoos. I'm not going to judge him, tattoos don't mean much, but he's an interesting looking character. So he gets in the car, and I notice this tattoo on his thigh straight away. It sort of caught me off guard. And anyway, he starts to unload on me, starts to tell me his life story. He's just gotten out of prison and he's on his way to the next town over because his girlfriend has left him. She's messing with a couple of guys in the next town over, and his parents have disowned him. He's got nowhere to go. He doesn't know who he is. He looks me in the eyes and he says, "I'm thinking of killing myself." He says if I don't kill myself, then I'm going to go to the next town over and I'm going to kill these guys that my ex is with. There's a story in the Bible of a man named Moses, and Moses is an Israelite. At this time, the Israelites are captive in Egypt. They're slaves to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians have ordered the murder of every son born to Israelite women. And Moses' mother, she doesn't want to have her son be killed, and so she sends him down the Nile River, and Moses just happens to be picked up by the daughter of Pharaoh. And so Moses is raised in the house of Pharaoh, and he's too Egyptian to be Hebrew, but he's too Hebrew to be fully Egyptian and fit in the house where he's raised. And so he's conflicted, he's confused, he doesn't know who he is, he doesn't know what he's going to do. And one day he's walking past an Egyptian that's beating his Hebrew slave, and so Moses kills the Egyptian and then flees into the wilderness. So I pick up my gear and I get back in the car and I say to this guy, I say, "Look, I'm going back into town because I've got to start youth in a minute. But I can leave you on the highway, you can try and catch another lift and get where you're going, or I can take you back into town, maybe you can make a better choice and I can help you find a hotel." And he said, "Youth? You're going to youth? Are you a Christian?" I said, yeah, I'm a Christian. He said, "Oh, no way. When I was in prison, I used to go to chapel. Whenever I was in chapel, I'd feel that anger and rage just melt off of me." See, God met this guy exactly where he was. I said to him in the car that day, I said, "Look, I normally don't come this way at this time of day. I just happened to have forgotten what I wanted, and you just happen to be walking on the side of the road. I think God has put me here for you for a reason, because you're about to make a decision that might permanently alter your life and the lives of countless other people." I said, "I think God's put me in your path today for a reason." And he said, "I think you're right." And so I start to tell him the story of Moses, and I start to tell him about how God met a murderer right there in the wilderness, and that this is the moment where I noticed what his tattoo on his leg really said. And so I started to tell this guy about how God has a hope for him. See, Moses, he's walking through the wilderness that he's been exiled in for 40 years. And Moses, he walks past a bush that's on fire. And then Moses was raised in the house of Pharaoh. Their God was a consuming fire. But he sees this bush. The bush is on fire and the bush is not consumed. See, God meets Moses exactly where Moses is at. Moses expects that God would be a fire. So God shows up as a fire to Moses. But he doesn't consume the bush. And from the bush, God speaks and he invites Moses to a better way. God meets Moses exactly where Moses thinks God is, and God invites him to live differently. That's exactly what happened to my friend that day on the side of the road, where God had met him in prison. But he didn't have the words, he didn't have the context for everything that was happening in his heart. He didn't have the full picture, he didn't have the whole story. And then that day when I pulled up and I got to explain to him that God wants him, I got to explain to him that anger and rage melting off of him in chapel that he didn't fully understand. He couldn't articulate what was going on in his heart. He couldn't articulate that was the love of God inviting him to a better way of living. But that day I got the opportunity to explain to him that God had chosen a murderer before. And he didn't have to be a murderer any longer. And so this man that's just gotten out of prison for murder, I got to explain to him that though he used to be a murderer, today God's giving him an opportunity to turn it around and be something that he was always created to be. God's giving him an opportunity to not go back to where he came from. In the desert in Egypt, God gave Moses an opportunity not to go back to where he came from, but to go and be redemption for his people. God gave this gentleman an opportunity that day. As I parked at the intersection, he could have got out of the car and started walking back down the highway, or he could have gone with me back into town. And he stayed in the car. He said, I'll go back to the hotel. And on that trip, I started to tell him more about the story of Moses. And he made a decision that day to give his life to Jesus. And I don't know where he's at now, but he said to me as he got out of the car, he said, if you don't see me on the news tomorrow, I didn't kill those guys and I didn't kill myself. Our job as Christians is not to judge people as they walk in rain on the side of the road. Our job as Christians is not to think people are too far gone, but our job as Christians is to engage the broken story exactly where it is. It's to meet people with the love of God wherever they are, whatever they look like, wherever they've been, whether they've just got out of prison, whether they're on their way to kill someone, or whether they've already done it and now they're in exile in the wilderness. Our job as Christians is to help people understand where God's already been at work in their story. To help people see where God is already chasing them down, where God already wants to meet them. I pray that you would be someone that would meet the broken right where they are, that you would be someone who God could use to engage the broken stories of broken people. I pray that God would meet you today and that He'd engage your broken story exactly where it is in order to move it forward. I could have driven past that day. I could have moved on. I could have been too busy. I had every right to be too busy that day. I was on a time crunch. I don't know if too busy is a good enough excuse when eternity's on the line. I don't know if too busy is a good enough excuse when I have the opportunity to maybe change someone's life just by stopping and listening to them. May God engage your broken story exactly where it is. May you be a tool in the hand of God. May you be a burning bush for someone else. That as they encounter you, they might encounter God.